Welcome to Successful Living with Bill Napick. Every week, we talk with interesting people in a variety of professions for ideas to enhance your success in all aspects of life. Successful Living with Bill Napick starts right now. Here's Bill Napick.
Thank you for joining us. I am Bill Napick. Welcome to the show, and you've tuned in to a special day, as today is a Media Systems special edition, and with Media Systems is Donnie Boutwell. Here's Donnie.
Welcome to Successful Living Show with Bill Napick. I'm your host today, Donnie Boutwell, and today is a very special technology edition of the show. We are really thankful to have Bill in our lives and the opportunity to be here today. He's such a great friend and mentor to us, and he does such a wonderful job on this show and the Real Estate Matters show. I'm Donnie Boutwell. My wife Jaclyn and I have a company here in Houston called Media Systems, and we do all of this sort of nerdy, techie stuff for your home, like Wi-Fi, security, audio-video systems, voice controls, all of that stuff. And so that's why we like to focus on home technology when we have the opportunity to host a show like this. And today, my very special guest is Jaclyn, my wife. Say hello to the people at home and tell them a little about yourself.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm Jaclyn. Donnie and I run Media Systems together, and we have 3 daughters, teens and tweens, so it's a very exciting time in our life.
Every night, there's something every night at this life stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially as school is winding down by the end of the year here. There's so much going on.
It's Maycember.
Maycember.
Yes. Yeah, it's like December, but worse.
Right.
At least there's nice weather.
Yeah, and it's really great to have this opportunity to talk today about this sort of soapbox that we have.
Well, wait, you have a soapbox?
I do, actually. I actually have a literal soapbox that the guys at the company made for me to stand on. It's pretty funny. Okay, but this one is a very important topic that I'm really glad we're having the opportunity to talk about today. Today, we're going to be talking about parental controls and keeping kids safe and protected online, which is such a huge undertaking today. I know it may be a very daunting task, may be very complicated.
It's exhausting.
It is. And I feel like just the minute that we think we know what we're doing with it, there's something else that we have to figure out.
Yeah, all the time. And thankfully, a little bit, it's our kids coming to us, or we overhear something and we're like, oh, well, now we have to figure that out.
Right.
A couple weeks ago, our youngest wanted to download an app on her phone, and she goes, oh, I don't even have to send you a thing to ask you permission anymore. I can just go here, here, and here, and I can download it. And she was so innocent in that. She just meant, like, I don't have to ask you to help me. But what she was really doing was going, like, around a back door and figuring out how to get an app without asking our permission.
Right.
Huge.
Right, which a big part of this is permissions with everything. We have everything locked down to a point where the kids can't just go download something, or at least that's the goal. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Now they can't, because we figured it out, and thankfully she's still communicating with us.
Yeah.
But I kind of going back, I want to ask if you remember this situation. We were visiting with a client who, our business has been around since 1980. My uncle started our company, and we have these clients that we have known for years and years and years and years, and a lot of them have become friends. Mm-hmm. And I want to know if you remember this conversation. We're sitting in Bob's conference room at his office talking about doing a remodel on his new house, and he brought up what was going on with his own daughter on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was really scary. It was right before our kids were at the point of using devices. Like, his youngest is 2 or 3 years older than our oldest, who's 16 now. And he said that she had gotten involved in something on Pinterest, which, I thought was like, pinning really cute bedroom styles. And
right, Pinterest, of all places.
Clothes and whatever. Well, apparently there's a way to do a chat within Pinterest. You can talk to your friends or whatever, and I had never even used that feature. I didn't know. And so his daughter had some man was grooming her online, basically, and she was almost trafficked.
Wow.
Like, the wife was checking out her daughter's computer for something, and just happened to be the day that she was supposed to be picked up, and she accidentally gave the wrong address.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it was within minutes, I think, that she could have been trafficked.
And we know that Houston is a hot spot for human trafficking. It's unbelievable.
Well, and it was totally innocent. It was a young girl. You know, she didn't know. She was just answering questions and, you know, thought she was making a friend and had no idea what she had gotten herself into.
Right.
So some of this, you know, before we even get into how to do this, talk to your kids. You have to be asking questions.
That's right.
And you have to be involved.
Yeah. And so then fast forward from that, the evolution of this process for us was, you know, of course, with our company, we're providing networks and Wi-Fi systems, and we have all of the tools to do this with the systems that we put in. And so we've had parents ask, how do we do this? What are you doing for yourself? And then I remember we were at our middle girls band concert, and the head of our school, we're at a private school, and the head of our school came to us and he said, this is complicated. Everybody's always asking me, how do you do this? What are you doing? So what do you do for your own kids? How do you keep your own kids safe online?
We were like, you know what? We could talk for an hour about that, kind of like just saying it. And he was like, great, go write that curriculum. We'll schedule a class.
And so
while it was it's easy to talk about it for an hour, we didn't quite have like a class put together.
Right.
You know? So it was fine to do that.
So we developed a class, and then during 2020, we held this class at the school. And of course, it was, you know, typical COVID environment. Everybody,
like 8 people in the classroom and 40 online or something.
Yeah, there was all these people were watching on Zoom, and they recorded that, and then were able to hand that out to further people. And there were some things about that version that were specific to the school and for the time. Things change every year. And then as we got into the following year, they asked if we could do something again. And so we said, okay, well, this time we're just going to make a video that we can allow parents to download to learn how to keep their kids safe online. And so we did that, but it was also very specific to the school. And so that's kind of the cool thing about what we're going to talk about today is that whether your child or grandchild is in a private school or public school or homeschool, charter school situation, these principles should apply regardless of the situation.
Well, or if you're a teacher or you babysit kids, you have any child in your life at all, this is very helpful to know and to just give you some ideas of like, what are the boundaries here? You know, it's so new, and some people are a little scared to even parent that, whether you're the parent, teacher, whatever, you know. So we hope that we're just a little bit of an encouragement of you're allowed to ask questions, you're allowed to be a part of somebody's life. You know, this is just because it's new doesn't mean that you have to back out of it completely.
You're also allowed to be the parent.
Yes.
That's right.
Please.
You know, it's fun. What was interesting to me is that after a lot of these classes that we did, parents would approach us and say, okay, help me with this. How did this work? Talk me through this part again. And many times the question was just about parenting.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the times this mom was like, because you told this story about a kid running out on the road, and this mom was like, yeah, my kid does that all the time. How do you stop that? It was like, that's not technology. That's not parental controls. It was just a genuine, like, mom to mom, like, please help me with my toddler. I think the kid was 4 or 5 years old. And I was like, just give him the responsibility of taking care of you. Then he's not running into the road doing what he wants. Because if you say, hey, teach mom how to cross the road, what do we have to do first? You know, then the kid is wanting to help his mom cross the road instead of running out for fun. And it's like, so we're just kind of put on the spot sometimes of how do you parent this situation?
But it's been helpful for us as parents to be a part of a community, to have some encouragement from older parents. And that's really what we're trying to do today, I think.
Yeah.
I think that as we get into this topic, just to give an overview, we're going to give 3 separate layers of protections that we're going to recommend to use, because we feel like there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. There's not one answer that solves it. There's not one way to solve it. But with the 3 separate layers of protection, we should be able to catch what we need to catch, keep kids protected, and allow them also to have freedom to be themselves in the world.
Absolutely. And it's important to note that we don't think that we are perfect in this.
That's right.
You know, we don't have it all together. We sure try. But we've come across a lot of different things, and we feel like this is a good starting point. If you're just new to this and like exhausted and I don't know where to start, just start here, you know, take some notes, and this should at least get you started in the right direction.
Great. So get yourself a pen, get a notepad, start a note on your phone. We're going to give you the tools to know how to keep your kids safe online. And I think the number one thing you need to write down is that most kids today are getting devices from their school and taking them home to do work with. And I think that if you're not aware, it would be a good idea to go to the school and just ask them what they're already doing. And that's something that our school is very good about. We really appreciate that. They are determined to make sure that those devices are reliable and work well. And so in order to do that, they're preventing malware. They're doing whatever they can to keep the device protected already. And in that process, it also provides some tools to keep them safe from predators online. One of the things that they do, at our school at least, and probably most schools these days, is that they use something called a VPN connection on the device, on the student laptops or iPads. And so basically that means that any data that comes down to the device has to go through this VPN filter in a way. And so that's one way to look at the traffic before it hits the kid, which is great. Another really great thing that our school does is a program called the Apple Classroom. It's an Apple school where all the devices are Macintosh, Apple type computers.
Older kids have laptops, younger kids have iPads. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so at our school, they use this program called Apple Classroom, which I think is brilliant. What it does is it allows the teacher to see what is on the student's screen in the classroom.
Only in the classroom.
Only in the classroom, yeah, that's an important distinction. But so good, because it means that if they're doing something that's not their schoolwork, they can tell, for one, okay? But also, it's, to me, analogous to, I'm driving through Spring Valley, and I know that there's going to be a police officer sitting at that stop sign every time I drive through there.
If you drive through any of the memorial villages, you know what we mean.
That's right. Every time you drive through. And so I know anytime I see people pulled over in those neighborhoods, I know they don't live in anywhere near that area. They're just going through, because anybody that lives there knows there's going to be somebody clocking your speed every time you drive through there. And so this Apple Classroom program is just a brilliant way for kids to be aware. Somebody can see my screen. I should not be pulling up social media right now. I'm supposed to be doing my assignment, which is a really great application. Our school does that. We love that. So if you're not sure what your school is already doing, that's a great place to start, is to go to the school, go to the technology department, and ask them, what are you doing to keep my child safe on this device that you are providing? And so we'll deal with that with the school-provided devices, but we're also going to deal with the devices that we provide for our children as well. So, and I don't mean to be preachy or anything to you right now. I'm not trying to, talk you into something here, but I just want to bring this up again about the community aspect of this. Parenting is hard. It is hard. It's difficult. And we're constantly seeing things change in the world. And it's just so helpful to be a part of a community of people that are like-minded. And for us, it's our church. We're involved in a big church here in Houston, and we have a lot of really good friends there, and some parents that are older than us and some that are younger than us. Grandparenting is something new to navigate. You know, it never stops. You never stop parenting your children, even when they become adults. And being around grandparents who have older adult children is so important and who have older grandchildren. And so being a part of that community, being able to ask questions, what are you doing to deal with that? Certainly no community, no church is perfect. But do yourself a favor if you got to get some help with a like-minded community. Now, we're about to get into the meat of this, okay? So again, get ready to take some notes. There's going to be a ton of information that we're going to go through. So get your phone out, start a note, get a pen and pad. But before we go into these techniques, the tools, the 1, 2, 3 of how to do this, I would like to just ask you, Jaclyn, to go through some of these statistics and some of what is the state of the situation that we're actually in right now? Because I think a lot of people are not aware of really how difficult and dangerous it is for children to be navigating the web right now.
Yeah. Well, and not that I'm the expert and I have all the answers, but I know where to go look to find a lot of those answers. And we'll get into part of this later, but there's an app that we use. It's an AI monitoring company called Bark, and they are awesome. They monitor your kids' activities online and send you alerts, so you just have a heads up of what's going on. And they have done a lot of research and talk about all the different things that are affecting kids and how much it's changed even since COVID started, since the pandemic began. And I was just kind of reviewing that this week because I was curious. And they said from January to March of 2021 compared to January to March of 2020, Bark saw a 143% increase in alerts for self-harm and suicidal thoughts in teenagers.
Oh my gosh.
143% in the last year.
Wow.
Pretty wild. So I love that they know the statistics on this kind of stuff. And I'm going to read through some of it. And it's not to freak you out. Like, the point of this is not to terrify you. It's to give you encouragement. And I think part of that is knowing what is happening. So these stats are from about a year ago, so it's probably changed since then. But 64% of they do ages 13 to 24 in a lot of their stats. So 64% of young people actively seek out pornography weekly. Actively seeking out. Now, think about it when we were kids. Like, when we were little, there was, Playboy and whatever. You'd have to go find a magazine that maybe was hidden somewhere or whatever. I mean, you had to really work for it, and it was pictures. Not that it was good for you, and I never even got into that, but I'm just saying, in general, that's what was out there. It
wasn't so easy to find. You had to go get it, look for it. Somebody had to give it to you.
Yeah. Well, now it's not just pictures, it's video. So can you imagine a 12-year-old's mind seeing video of that for the first time? I mean, think about what that's doing to their brain chemistry and everything. It's horrible. Okay, so the other interesting part of that is a third of all the content on the unfiltered internet is porn. A third of it.
1/3 of all of the unfiltered content on the internet is pornography.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a huge number, I mean, just unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me scroll through here and find some more. 54% of teens frequently have private conversations online with online strangers through instant messaging. I mean, I remember doing that even on AOL, all those years ago in elementary school. It was like the internet was brand new. We would talk to people online all the time. It was super creepy, or it should have been creepy. Looking back, it was creepy.
I remember when online dating was a taboo. Like, ooh, you met somebody online? That's weird.
Right, and now we're literally finding somebody online, some stranger to come pick us up and go get in the back of their car. Like,
wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so 30% of kids reported that they have talked with a cyber stranger about meeting in person. And so that's what we're doing with Uber and whatever else. But this is like meeting up on different apps and dating things as kids. And a lot of people have what we like to call the NMK disease.
What was that again?
NMK.
NMK disease.
Yeah, not my kid. Well, my kid wouldn't do that. If you think that, you're wrong. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Your kid could absolutely do that. And probably not maliciously. They're probably not trying to get in trouble, but they can do that. Okay, so here's another one. 51% of parents either do not have or do not know if they have software on their computer to monitor their teenagers' online interactions.
Wow, more than half.
More than half of parents. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
Like most people don't know what they're doing.
We're talking to parents and grandparents today, too. I imagine the number's even lower with grandparents because they're not actively involved with those devices.
Right.
And they may not be as savvy with those devices. The number of listeners out there today is dramatically high that don't know if there's a way to protect their kids on those devices.
And so if you're letting your kid take their phone in their bedroom at night, you are literally allowing a stranger in their bedroom.
Wow.
You know, if you put it into that perspective, you have no idea if they're talking to some 40-year-old man or if it's a 12-year-old kid.
Well, imagine this, just taking it back a generation. What if there was a CCTV camera in your child's bedroom and a telephone there, and a stranger could just watch them and call them?
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that.
No, nobody would do that. And Bark also says that the average predator has 250 victims in their lifetime. So, I mean, wherever the kids are, that's where the predators are.
Wow.
And again, it's not to terrify you, but encourage you to, like, get their phones and computers out of their bedroom. If you're not going to let them go in their bedroom as a 12-year-old with a boy or girl in there with the door shut, you shouldn't let them in their bedroom with their phone.
Well, and imagine the scenario. Your child has their phone in the bedroom, and another child or predator sends a text message and says, "Send me a dirty picture on your phone." Then they have to decide, am I going to do this or not? But
well, and if they're being pressured in that moment, they may just do it.
They may. But in our world, devices don't go upstairs. They don't go into the kids' bedrooms. And so what would happen with our child is they would get the message on the phone, and the response would be, well, I'm in the kitchen with my mother.
Right. You're not going to go send a picture of yourself if you're in the kitchen, and there's an easy way to get out of it. We also always tell our kids, use us as the excuse. You know, just, well, I can't. My mom said so. Or whatever it is, like, use us as the excuse. I just think that's super important. Okay, so here's another one. More than 29% of kids on the internet freely give out their home address, email address, or other personal information online when they're asked. It's so important to have that conversation over and over and over again. I even said that to my mom today. Like, do not put any of that information online because you don't know what you're looking at. You know, you don't know. You just got to be sure if you're looking at a website and you're applying for a job or whatever you're doing. You just don't want to give that kind of information if you don't have to. You know?
Absolutely.
And I really don't think that. I think that the way that kids' brains develop, they don't realize the severity of some of the things that they're doing. You know, they have these challenges, TikTok challenges and whatever else, and it's so fast I can't even keep up with it all.
Tell the audience what these TikTok challenges are. What does that even mean?
Do you remember the Tide Pod challenge? A couple years ago, kids were literally eating those Tide Pods because they thought it was funny. And they're not, I'm sure they're not thinking like, oh, that tastes good. They're doing it because of the pressure of other kids doing it and videoing it. And
or the excitement. Look at me, I did something, I'm famous.
Right. And then they had the, I can't remember what this one was called, but they were like climbing up a stack of milk crates. I think it was just a milk crate challenge. And so they would stack it up into like a pyramid, and they would walk up one side and try to walk down the other side. And they were just falling and getting hurt. So many broken bones. One girl broke her spine and was then paralyzed. I mean, it's horrible. So it's just important to stay on top of that kind of stuff and talk with them, make sure that they're not doing something stupid like eating a Tide Pod.
So when you were a teenager, was there ever any situation where you met up with somebody online?
Yeah. So this dates myself. Maybe makes me sound a little younger than you, but still dates myself. So I think it was sixth grade or eighth. I don't remember actually now if it was sixth or eighth. I think it was eighth grade. And that's, AOL chat rooms and whatever. And I met this guy online, and after like weeks of talking with him, it was like chat room stuff, and then it moved on to the AOL Instant Messenger, And he said he went to a school near me and said that we had like mutual friends and things like that. And so we thought it'd be really cool to meet up, like go meet in person. I was 14, I shouldn't have been going and meeting some random guy. Thankfully, I had my brother with me, and we went and met at the movie theater and everything, and it turned out to be fine. But oh my gosh, like it really could have been some old man, or who knows what it could have been.
You have no idea who these people are or who they're pretending to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Successful Living Show on 950 AM. This is a very special home technology edition. I'm Donnie Boutwell. This is my wife, Jaclyn. And today we are talking about parental controls and how to keep kids safe online. And, before we dig into the 1, 2, 3 of how to do this, I just want to say again, parents, grandparents, it is okay to be the parent. It is okay. You're probably tuning into this just out of curiosity. You're not sure what to do about it. But I just want to share with you some really important truths to help you clarify your role as parents. And I found some really great quotes from a book called Permission to Parent: How to Raise Your Child with Love and Limits. Lee Stone is a pediatrician. He says, parenting is an autocratic system. It is not a democracy. Children need to follow your rules or else they become unruly. They do, period. Mm-hmm. Daphne Hirsch, another pediatrician, kids want to feel as if someone is in charge, as if someone is protecting them. Don't be afraid to assert what you think is right for your child. Don't be afraid to be in charge. I love that. Robert Landau, another pediatrician, parenting is a benevolent dictatorship. It should be always. And Ken Newman, do not let the inmates run the system. Pretty good, right? I remember when I was a kid, my mother read a really good book called Dare to Discipline from an author named James Dobson, really famous, Focus on the Family author.
I'm pretty sure she gave us that book, too.
Yeah, yes, thankfully. And there's such a great story in that. And I've carried this with me over the years, this thought that imagine that you're a security guard walking through the property late at night. You reach and you grab the door handle and you turn that door handle because you want the door handle to be locked. That's what you want. You don't want the door to be open because that means danger. Children in the same way are looking for the security of boundaries. There is something that makes them feel safe and secure when they hear the word no. It's important. The security of boundaries. We've got to learn to be careful about the people and the voices and the content that we allow in front of our children. Who is influencing your kids? Is it you? Is it a stranger? Who has their ear and who has their heart? Again, you wouldn't let a 10-year-old kid spend alone time with a 50-year-old stranger. You just wouldn't do that. We talked about this. 1/3 of the content on the unfiltered internet is pornography today. And I say unfiltered internet because that's what we're going to be explaining in a minute, is how to do that filtering. But Chris McKenna shared this illustration in the documentary Childhood 2.0. And if you haven't seen that,
Write that down.
Write that down. Childhood 2.0 is a really great documentary about this. Imagine that there were 4 magazines on my parents' coffee table at home, and one of them was pornography. And every day, my parents just hoped that I wouldn't pick up the wrong one. That is the unfiltered internet. You wouldn't just leave it sitting out for them. So if your kids aren't sick of hearing about it, if they're not just like, please give me a break, then you haven't even begun to talk about it enough. They need to be rolling their eyes. We need to just be like, just never stop talking about this. Be careful what you click on. And I feel like another thing that's an important principle for me is as we raise our children and grandchildren, don't you want the truths of life to come from you?
Absolutely.
Don't you want the influence to come from you? You don't want it to come from strangers. So we've got to get in front of this. We've got to start talking to our kids about this stuff when we think they're way too young.
Well, and I tell our kids, like, if your friends are talking about something at school that you're not sure of, come and ask me, and I will tell you. Like, I'll answer any of the questions. Just come and ask me, because I assure you, I know more than your friend knows about any of this stuff.
That's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's another illustration that you use a lot about the car.
Oh, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, yeah, my dad made me learn how to change a tire. You know, he wanted me to be able to do that kind of stuff on my own, so that I didn't have to ask for help for that. But you know, with all the online stuff, we have a 16-year-old daughter, and she's starting to drive, and we didn't just go hand her the keys. We weren't like, here, go figure out how to drive on the widest freeway in the world by yourself. You know, there's a process here of let's sit in the car, figure out how to adjust your mirrors. Okay, now let's drive in this parking lot and start to practice parking in spaces and get in a straight line. Okay, let's go in the neighborhood where it's super quiet and there are no cars coming around. And each time she drives, she does a little bit more and more and more. And with the internet, it's like we hand our kids a phone at 8 years old and we're like, here you go figure out the world. You know, we shouldn't just hand them the keys to the entire world without any parameters. They have to learn proper etiquette with that.
That's right. Really good. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get into the 3 layers of protection that we use to keep our kids safe online. If you're not already taking notes, this is not a time to start writing things down. These are those basic fundamental layers that I think everybody should have in place for their own safety as well. And the first one is what we would call content filtering. Now, this layer of protection, I think, is similar to what you would, if you were to apply a movie rating to your home internet, for example. So you could say that nothing that we connect to our Wi-Fi system is going to be any worse than PG or PG-13 or rated R. We're going to set a level of filtering protection. It's like setting a movie rating. And the way you do that is with your home Wi-Fi network equipment. And so there are 3 layers of protection, but there are also 3 basic kinds of Wi-Fi systems that you might have in your home. And so just for the sake of illustration, we're going to walk through each one. The first one is what I'd like to call the provider-only system, meaning that anything that's creating your Wi-Fi around your home is just the stuff that you get from Comcast or AT&T or whoever your service provider is. And so that kind of system is actually pretty great for parental controls, because those manufacturers or those service providers have the tools built in. So, for example, at our home, we have Comcast Xfinity, and I could log into our account with the same username and password that I would use for paying a bill, for example. And I can pull it up and I can look through the tools that are on there to set up those parental controls. So there's a device in the house that's called a gateway, and you're basically connecting to that box. And to enable those controls, you just connect to it from a web browser. The instructions on how to do that are pretty well done and can be found on their website. So you go in, you go to support, you go view internal support, internet support, and then tips for parents, then set up parental controls for the internet. It's basically that simple. You can even go to the search bar on the service provider site and search parental controls, and that should give you instruction on how to do that. So from here, you can block specific websites and create user profiles as well, which is another important part of this process, to be able to say, okay, child number 1 is profile number 1. These devices are assigned to this child. And if I need to turn the internet off for this particular child, that's a way to do that. It's great. So the second kind of system that you might have for your home Wi-Fi is what we would call a DIY system. Now, this is interesting for us to be bringing up, because we are what we'd call the DIFM people, which is the do it for me company. So if you're not a DIY person, then call Media Systems. We're your DIFM partner, so we will do it for you. But if you have a DIY type Wi-Fi system in your home, then you know who you are. and you're the weekend warrior, you like to do things yourself, and there are a lot of really popular systems for this, like Eero, Asus, Netgear, Orbi, Google Nest Wi-Fi. There are a lot of really great products out there that you can manage yourself to handle the home Wi-Fi in your home if you're a DIY type person. Now, when you go to set up content filtering on those systems, it's in the same interface that you're using to set it up. So, and the other really wonderful benefit about DIY people is that there's a nice community out there, and you could go to YouTube, you probably already know this, and just search up the product that you're using and parental controls. And there's some other weekend warrior out there that's already made a video to show you how to do it. It's time consuming, but if you're into technology, you want to save some money, you want to do it yourself, please do it. That's great. And so now the third type of system that people may have for their Wi-Fi at home, especially if you have a larger home, is one that we would call a commercial grade system or a professionally installed system, like the systems that Media Systems might provide. Some of those brands are familiar names like Ubiquiti, Unify, PackEdge, Aruba, Ruckus, Access Networks. Our personal favorite is one called Arachnus because it has the Oversee Home app where you can reboot, reset things. And that's also a place where you would go to have the same tools to create profiles for a user, for a child, and then to assign devices to the child, set those content filtering ratings.
And this is where we can add the school laptop on that Wi-Fi, the kid's iPhone, that kind of stuff. And each kid has their own time. And so one I can shut off at 8 p.m. when it's bedtime for her, and the next kid I could do 10 p.m. when it's her bedtime.
Right. So it's a wonderful tool to do that. And I would encourage you, don't just call your network specialist and say, hey, set up the parental controls. Don't leave it there. Okay. Mm-hmm. Have them come sit with you. Look through the application, train you what tools you have at your own disposal, and then you'll be able to manage it.
You have to be involved. In order for this to work, nobody is going to be able to do all of these things for you. It absolutely comes down to you making decisions and staying on top of it.
That's right. And if it's just too overwhelming, call me and we'll help. Okay. 713-426-0900, mediasystems.com. Okay. Now, another really cool product that I think is a great solution is called the Circle. And you can find those at meetcircle.com. This is a device that connects to any kind of Wi-Fi network, and it will give you the same kind of tools. So that first layer is content filtering. We love it because it's built into the hardware of your home. You can have the peace of mind of knowing that content is blocked on your network at a certain rating level. Now, it's important to distinguish that this does not protect kids using a cellular connection on their phones. If they're connecting to data over cellular, they are bypassing the home network.
So if they leave their house with their phone, your home Wi-Fi network is not going to touch their phone.
That's right.
Or if they're at home and using their phone and realize a website is blocked, they could turn off their Wi-Fi and then just use the cellular that way.
Right.
Tricky.
There's always a way around. Okay, so that's that first layer of protections, content filter. And so quickly, Jaclyn, will you take us through the second layer of protection, which we're going to call screen time and scheduling. What is that, and how does it work?
Yeah, so it's different depending on what platform you're using. We use Apple Screen Time, but if you're on the Google phones, there's the Google Family Link. And it depends on which device you're using on how to do it, but both of them have very similar options. I'll just go through the list in order on Apple because that's what I know the best. But if you do have Google, just look up the Google Family Link, and you'll be able to find some information on that. So on your iPhone, go into Settings and tap on your name, and then tap on Family Sharing, and make sure that your kids are set up in your family sharing. And this is a whole other conversation if they're not. But this is where you would add them as a member.
So but basically, there's the parental user, and then you set up a child's Apple ID as a child user under the parent's account.
Yeah, and both parents can be set up as parents and organizers where you can both manage. At least if you're within the same family, you could both manage the kids' devices from there. But the kid is set up under you as a child, and they ask their birth date. Then you can manage some things. So after you add member, you would create an account for a child and tap continue, and then you just follow the instructions, and you can set up a separate email for their Apple ID. You do not want to share an Apple ID. Nobody in your family should share an Apple ID.
Yes.
Can
we just say that again very slowly?
Do not share an Apple ID with anybody in your family, not even your spouse, because you'll end up getting the same phone calls, and it gets really confusing.
Such a headache, and it's really difficult to take those apart later.
Is. I spent hours with somebody, and still one of their phone numbers is connected in this complicated way, and it's such a mess. So whatever you can do to have different email addresses for your Apple ID, it would be so much better. And then, because you don't want your kids getting your text messages and phone calls and that kind of stuff too. It's just complicated. So anyway, once you get through all of that and you're setting up your kid under your family sharing, then you go into your settings again, and you tap on screen time, and then you pick your kid's name. So let's say you do child number 1. It'll ask you to set up a passcode, and in this section, you're then controlling what they're doing on their phone, blocking certain websites and whatever else. Set up a passcode that they don't know. Do not use your birthday backwards, because they will figure it out. Don't use your address, your social security number, whatever. Don't use those. I actually use my phone number from when I was a kid. It's the last 4 digits. Like, I'm never going to forget that number. No way my kids would have it or be able to find it. It's just something easy to use that you'll remember. And then you can set up things like their downtime. So we turn it off at 9 p.m. and it's back on at 7 a.m. They basically can't use their phone throughout the night. Now they could use something like text messaging, but after they hit that point, it will only allow them to text us in our family, parents and siblings and grandparents, and that's it. So let's say they're at a friend's house, they can still text me at midnight or call me and say, hey, I need you to pick me up, and that's fine. But they can't go around texting other people. But there are so many different lines of permissions in there. You can block certain music or movies or apps and a very specific website that you don't want them to go to. It's pretty awesome what they can do.
I think another benefit of having the kid set up that way that's important to distinguish is they can't just go download an app.
Yes. Well, now they can't if you set it up right, from what we figured out earlier. So you can make it where they have to ask you permission so they can know their password.
What you're talking about is, do we allow them to download? There's a setting in there where we can decide if we share downloads to our kids or not. That's what needs to be enabled.
Yes, there's two parts of that. So one is under the kids settings, you can tell it ask permission to download apps. And same with deleting apps. We don't let them delete apps either, because we want to make sure that we're seeing anything that pops up on there. But the second part of that is in your own settings under family sharing. You have to tell it, don't share apps between the family. So let's say I download TikTok because I want to know what TikTok is and how it works and whatever. If I allow family sharing for apps, then our kids can go under iTunes and go find the app and download it through the cloud that way without asking permission.
Right.
So don't share your apps in family sharing. That's the first part. And then make sure that they have to ask permission in order to download something.
Excellent.
I could talk all day on that. So just know that you can do that under settings and screen time. You pick the child you want. You set up your code, and then hit every button in there. Look through each option and decide what you want to allow and not allow. The other really important one on that is we don't allow passcode changes on the phone. 'Cause I need to be able to get into their phone, at any time. I don't do it often, but if I want to go look and see who they're talking to or whatever, I need to be able to have access to their phone.
That's very important. And that's just an agreement with the kids. We are paying for this device. We're providing it for you. You do not have permission to just take it over
Benevolent
and take the password.
dictatorship, like you said.
Benevolent dictatorship. That's right. So that is what we call screen time and scheduling. That's the second layer. So again, to recap, that first layer is content filtering on the home Wi-Fi. The second layer is that screen time and scheduling feature that we're talking about. Now, what's the third layer of protection that we want to encourage people to use?
The third layer would be monitoring. And this is that company I was talking about earlier. They're called Bark. It's an AI monitoring company. And now they can't, some apps don't allow monitoring within, they don't allow Bark to monitor, but at least your phone does or your laptop does, depending on what kind it is. I mean,
what is Bark and what is it doing?
So how about I give you an example of what they did? So so they're monitoring text messages and Google Sheets and some apps, things like that. So if your kids are on Instagram, they can monitor that, but not TikTok. And if something pops up that their AI determines is something that's not good, let's say bullying or self-harm or violence, it will send me as the parent an alert. I can open up the alert on my phone and I can see, well, this kid, the example was when we first got started with this, it was during quarantine and our kids were doing all their homework and tests from home. And I got an alert for drug use for a then 9-year-old. I think she was 9 at the time. And I look it up and it says she emailed this particular teacher and she wrote her spelling test down, and one of her handwritten words as a 9-year-old was edible, and it flagged that for drug use. So I was able to see the context. So I didn't just think, oh my gosh, my 9-year-old's talking about drugs, what's going on? I could see it was a picture of her spelling test, and obviously it's no big deal. I would say that 99% of the alerts I get are not a big deal. It's nothing. It might say bullying because somebody says shut up. It may talk about depression or anxiety and lots of things, and most of it is no big deal. But I have a general idea of the people our kids are talking to and the conversations that they're having, and it just flags the things that we should look at and just have an idea about. And that gives me the opportunity to go talk to them. Hey, I heard, how was your day today? What's going on with this friend? They know we're monitoring. They absolutely know all the information that we're getting this. But it's important for us to keep the communication open with them. But I don't have to say, hey, I saw that, you and your friend were having this fight on a text message. I just say, hey, what's going on with this person? It gives me an idea of something to talk about with them, to open the lines of communication.
I think that one of the things that grabs me about this idea of monitoring is twofold. One is that there is just no way for us to keep up with the amount of traffic that comes and goes from the child's device.
Oh, yeah. Not when they're in group text messages and they get 1,000 a day. I mean, how are you going to read through all of that?
It's just too much information, too much information. There's no way to keep up with it. There's no way. But then also that it's not, I'm not looking at their stuff, so they also have a sense of privacy. Right. And I'm only getting alerts for things that need to be checked in on. Right. And I think that's important. And so, Bark is really an amazing company, and we started the program talking about some of the stats that they have shared with us. And I love that they, on their social media, they're always reminding you, bringing up a new story. This happened this week. This is going on in current events. So they're actively involved. And
they're interviewed in that documentary you talked about, Childhood 2.0. It's really compelling. You should watch that.
Yeah, it's so important. It's not terribly expensive. It's so worth it.
It's like $100 a year, and it doesn't matter how many kids you have or how many devices you have.
Now, what about school devices? Is there a way to get Bark connected with school devices, maybe depending on the school?
Yes and no. Certain things will allow it. It's what the other companies will allow Bark to do, not that Bark doesn't want to do it. So, like at our school, the kids are on Apple laptops, and and Apple doesn't allow the monitoring. However, in Google Chrome, you can add an extension for Bark, and that was something we went to the school for and requested it, and now they allow it for the whole school.
Wow.
So if your school is not doing something, or whatever you're using, if they're not allowing something, just go talk to them, show them this show or one of those documentaries. The other documentary would be The Social Dilemma. That's another good one, I think is on Netflix, The Social Dilemma. But watch both of those and they give you a lot of information.
That's so great. So, and one other thing I want to just throw out there real quick is that there are some really good apps for location tracking, and one that we like to use is called Life 360. And I love this, especially if you've got kids that are old enough to be driving. You can see where they are in real time. You can see how fast they're driving. You can get a location history for the last 30 days, crash detection, emergency dispatch, roadside support. It's really a wonderful, wonderful application that we love to use. There's no right or wrong solution. It's just important to have these different layers.
There are other apps like that you could do, like Covenant Eyes, I think is one of them, where it gives you screenshots of things that they look at throughout the day. I mean, if you're using any of those, that's great. These are just all the things that have worked for us that we like and use.
That's right. So, there's one thing that I think that's important to mention as we kind of wrap up here today, and that even as an adult, it's important to realize that you are dealing with an algorithm when you're online, and that's an important thing to know what it is and what is it doing as we even navigate through our own social media use and our own online world. You're dealing with an algorithm, and so what is this algorithm doing? It's designed to try to give you what you're looking for. And this can be good and bad. I've used this illustration before in that if you're looking for oranges and you've decided that oranges are the best citrus fruit of all citrus fruits, and then you keep looking at that and keep searching for that, and then you go look at lemons, it's going to start talking bad about lemons. I mean, that is how the algorithm works. And so I tell our kids this all the time. If you look for injustice, all you will see is injustice. If you look for racism, inequality, gender discussions, whatever it is that you're looking for, the algorithm is going to keep giving it to you. So don't let the algorithm radicalize you. Don't let it control your life.
In any way.
Yeah, in any direction, any way. Right, everything in moderation. It's important to realize that what you're being fed is what it is. So be careful, be safe out there online. Thank you so much for listening to the program today. You have been listening to the Successful Living Show with Bill Napick on 950 AM. I've been your guest host, Donnie Boutwell, with my wife, Jaclyn. We have a company in Houston here called Media Systems, where we do all of this nerdy home technology stuff for you. We are the DIFM specialists, the do-it-for-me people. If you're not a DIY person, that's what we're here for. Please reach out if we can help you at mediasystems.com, 713-426-0900. Tune in next week to hear an exciting new episode with Bill on the Successful Living Show.